Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Taliya Bashani, who's the CEO of TAB Law Firm. Taliya, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Mike. Great to be here.
Hey, I'm looking forward to talking with you and learning all about what you do to serve your clients and your community, but get us a little bit of your background and how you got started into the legal field.
Sure, absolutely. So I started my legal career. Actually, while I was in law school, I worked for my dad's mortgage company, kind of learning the ins and outs of the real estate mortgage world, where I really got a good exposure to how everything works in the real estate industry. So my focus in law school was on real estate transactions. And then after graduation, I moved back to New York and I started working for a mid-size law firm who specialized in residential real estate. And that is pretty much where I started my career, working for that firm, doing all residential closings, contracts, mortgage financing, and the closings. And I was doing about 40 to 50 closings per month. For that firm. Mm-hmm.
So I love when I hear that entrepreneurs start off in the corporate world, because that's kind of where you learn the foundational things, the ins and outs and all of that. And then probably somewhere in the back of your mind, you were thinking, oh, you know what? I would love to start my own firm and I'm going to do this a little different, or I wish that they would do this, so I'm going to add this in. So is that kind of how you found yourself, thinking about launching into your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, to be honest, I wasn't really planning on starting my own practice so quickly. I was only 27 years old when I started for the firm, and I was kind of pushed out, so to speak, where I had to make the decision whether I stay or do I go. And it was kind of the circumstances that really pushed me to start my own practice.
Sometimes that's what it takes, isn't it? Like getting pushed into the deep end. You think, well, it might be nice if one day I did that, but then someday never comes. So it's like getting pushed. It's like, okay, let's do this thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me.
So you mentioned real estate law and transactions and things like that. Talk a little bit about how you serve your clients in the different elements of law. Is it all real estate focused?
Yeah, so it's pretty much all real estate focused, a little bit of corporate law for my real estate investors who are looking to form corporate entities like LLCs or S Corps to provide them with that shield of liability. So I also do that on the side, formation of corporate entities in order to hold the real estate assets for my clients.
Yeah, that's kind of like an add-on to your client work you're doing anyway, related to the real estate transactions. So that makes a whole lot of sense. Is it, you mentioned closings, like when you go buy a house or refinance a house, you're signing all the papers. So that's one element of it. But do you get into bigger things like, maybe projects or development and things like that?
Yes, absolutely. So I kind of started my business and my practice preparing offering plans, which are required for new developments and new construction condominiums that have to be filed with the Attorney General's office in New York in order for a sponsor, which is a developer, to start building. They have to get the offering plan accepted for filing by the AG's office, and only then can they start offering the condos for sale. So that's really where I launched my own practice, was through the condo offering plans before I moved into majority of the residential closings and representing buyers and sellers in those closings.
That offering plan sounds like a specialized knowledge. So as an example, I came out of the mortgage industry way back in the day, and I know about closings at the title company or the attorney's office. So that's kind of, what people think of a lot of times. But that plan of having specialized knowledge for the condos, that seems like a really great way that you could create that competitive advantage initially for your firm.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, it's nice. It's good to know both sides so that
Yeah.
when I do represent buyers who are purchasing new construction or new developments, I know exactly what to look for in those offering plans, since I've prepared them and filed them myself.
Yeah. So, a lot of times, when you think about competitive advantage, it's like, well, hey, I've got this degree or that degree. Well, you've got the law degree. So you've got the JD as a competitive advantage, and that's nice, but you have competitors. So when
Yeah.
you are talking to real estate investors, they have a lot of choices in who that they can select to represent them in the legal realm. What do you find are some of your strong competitive advantages that people appreciate and sets you apart from your competition?
Sure. So with me, the client always gets to work with me directly. So I think it's that personal touch. It's having myself be, directly involved in the deal from start to finish. I'm not one of those attorneys that will just bring the client in and then hand them off to a younger associate or paralegal, as many of the big firms do. I personally service each file from start to finish. I have the direct contact and communication with my client, and I also keep them in the loop, full transparency, and make sure that they're aware. Communication and responsiveness is key. A lot of clients want to just know that, their file and their deal is being well taken care of and attended to. So I think that's what sets me apart, is that personal touch and that hands-on transaction.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I would wonder if this has ever come up in some of the transactions you've dealt with, comparing it to like the bigger firms who might have a less experienced attorney or paralegal. They might just be like the quote unquote order taker, like they're filling out this form and doing this task. But have you ever had a time where you're working with the client and you're keeping them updated on the progress, and maybe just in the conversation, they mention something and you go, "Ooh, hold on. That is a big point. We need to make sure that, this might turn over some other dominoes to your advantage, or a concern that we need to fix right now." So I'm glad we were talking about that. And that kind of aha moment only would have come because you were working with that client and not a less experienced paralegal.
Precisely. Exactly right. So time that I receive information from the client about a certain situation or a specific nuance relative to their deal or their transaction that maybe wasn't made clear from the very beginning, or they didn't know that they, should have told me from the beginning, then yes, without having me directly involved with the client, then that's something that could have just slipped through the cracks. So I think it's, very important, and also sets me apart from a lot of the other attorneys who don't have that daily contact, with the client. Not that I'm speaking with the client every day, but if there is something that comes up, status updates, whatever it may be, they know they can reach me directly on my cell phone, in the office, via email, via text. I make myself available.
Yeah, I think that's a big competitive advantage. So now when you're in your own firm and you're working with your clients, certainly it's not been the proverbial hockey stick, progression from, start to perfect success, and there's been no roadblocks. Obviously, every entrepreneur has hurdles or failures or breakdowns. Talk a little bit about some of the failures, breakdowns, and lessons learned that you've experienced in launching and working in your firm.
Sure, absolutely. So as I kind of touched on before, what made me really start my own practice was one of the first projects that I had as a first-year associate working for that firm right out of law school was preparing an offering plan for a new development that the partner at my firm and some colleagues were going to build. So he asked me if I would be willing to prepare the offering plan, which pretty much is a 300-page book. He did not have a template, so I had to type it from scratch using another hard copy of an offering plan from another development, and then obviously tweak it and tailor it to meet the expectations of his project. So he promised me a $5,000 bonus in order to prepare this offering plan for him and get it accepted by the Attorney General's office. So he also made very clear that it would have to be done outside of my normal daily, work and responsibilities. So I pretty much worked, late nights, weekends, holidays typing up this offering plan because, again, as a 27-year-old, that $5,000 was a big deal to me and a great incentive to get it done. So I said, sure, I'll take on the challenge and the opportunity. So 6 months later, I finally got the offering plan accepted by the AG's office. I approached him and I said, hey, here's the approval letter and the acceptance letter. The offering plan's ready to go. So, you and your colleagues can start, to build or launch the project. And he said, well, due to the market change, we've decided to abandon the project and we're not going to move forward with it at this time. We don't think it'll be a wise investment. And I said, okay, well, that's on you. But, I still want my $5,000. I completed the work as you asked me. And he said, no, actually, you won't be getting, the 5,000 bonus anymore because there's no reason for it now. So with that, I obviously expressed my disapproval and disappointment with that because I earned the work and I did the work. And he said, well, if you have other endeavors, don't let me stop you. And this was after working for the firm probably about a year and some change. And with that, I refused to stay at a firm that didn't value me or work for a partner that didn't appreciate my hard work. And so I gave him my 2-week notice on the spot. And I was like, I'm out of here. I called his bluff essentially. And then I went home and I was like, oh man, what am I going to do now? So I had to kind of reinvent myself and I had two choices. I can either go look for another firm, to work for, or I could start, my own practice. And at that moment in time, I had a friend from high school, actually, who was a loan officer for JP Morgan Chase. And she said, hey, we're actually looking for women-owned and minority-owned law firms to add to our bank attorney list, because every lender in New York that lends, mortgage proceeds is required to have a bank attorney represent them at the closing. And I said, wow, okay, well, would I need to, what would I need to do? And she said, well, you'd have to be on your own. So be a solo practitioner and you just have to get E&O insurance. And then I can start feeding you business and feeding you deals. So I thought to myself, I said, all right, well, this is an opportunity that I can take and run with, and it's now or never. Yeah. So I said, if I take the risk and I give it a shot and I succeed, great. I run with it. And if not, if I fail and I can't support myself financially or whatever it may be, then I'll go back to looking for a firm, but I'm going to give myself a year and take it from there. So it was honestly the best decision that I made. And that was 15 years ago. And I started my practice out of my house, or out of my studio apartment, I should say, at 63 Wall Street. And I kind of dubbed my office address as my home address, because back then, if you had an address on Wall Street, nobody knew if it was an office or an apartment. Yeah. So it actually worked out pretty well for me. And anytime I had clients come, for contract signings or closings, I had, the doorman call me. I would come downstairs, I would greet the client, and then I would lead them to our tenant lounge, so to speak, which was this, amenities of, they had a conference room there and a conference table. And that's pretty much where I operated all of my client meetings and closings and contract signings. So I did that for 5 years, building my business, before I finally got office space and hired a paralegal and really grew the business from there.
Neat. That is such a great journey of really leap of faith. So when you think about when you took that step of faith, you gave yourself a year, but you probably were checking in on it about every month or quarter, going, is this still a good choice? So that step of faith is a huge piece that a lot of entrepreneurs must overcome. So whether it's from the spiritual side of I had faith to do this, or whether it's just the I have faith in myself, talk a little bit about how faith plays a role in overcoming that challenge. And then as you face new challenges each and every day, week, month, and year.
Sure, absolutely. So the faith honestly really came from hard work, determination, and perseverance, and a positive way of thinking. I had to build my confidence. I had to get out there to really network and build my contacts. I would go to real estate networking events. I would introduce myself to agents and ask them if they ever brought attorneys in, at their weekly sales meetings to speak. And they would say, sure, yeah, we have attorneys in all the time. And I would say, great. Can you introduce me to your sales manager? I would love to come in and present and give you guys a lunch and learn, so to speak. And with that, I really was able to kind of cultivate my network, introduce, do all these meet and greets with different real estate agents, give them educational seminars and information. And in turn, they would refer me those deals. And look, sometimes I got the door slammed in my face. So it's really being able to pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and keep going. So it was that faith and that determination and the hard work that was like, well, I'm not going to let that stop me. If they're not going to say yes, somebody else will. And it's just having that perseverance to really, just move forward and kind of chip away at the mountain, step by step.
In the face of defeat, and defeat doesn't need to be defeat in all caps, like the big defeat. It just needs to be in this battle. This is a defeat because I was told no, or I need to launch my own business. So, you went from the faith to taking that a leap of entrepreneurship. And then now, how about let me develop clients and referral sources? And each one of those steps has some potential for missteps. So talk a little bit about how that perseverance then gets really, dialed into your mindset to lead you to even more success. So, launching and getting those initial, sets of referral sources, that becomes a foundation. And then where do you go from there that then led you to more success leading up to even today?
Yeah. So honestly, a lot of it comes down to follow up and follow through. You have to constantly be knocking on people's doors. Of course, nobody's going to respond to me right away. And I couldn't be afraid to, pretty much put my foot in the door and say, hey, how about that call, or how about that meeting, or, can we set up a lunch, or can I take you out? So it was that following up and following through and not taking no for an answer. That really allowed me to continue. And look, not everybody wanted to work with a young woman in the real estate field, especially 15 years ago. It's still a very male dominated industry. Sure. So, but slowly but surely, there would be more female real estate agents, and, I would connect with them. And I did get my fair share of, male real estate agents as well, but I really had to, make a big impression on them. And I also didn't have a name for myself. I didn't have a big firm behind my name either, so it's like, well, why should we give you a shot? But then when I finally got a chance to get in front of the room and, speak and teach, then people were like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll send you our clients. And then only if I did a great job and their client was happy and satisfied with my services would I get more referrals and more agents that I would essentially make an impression on so that they could, continue referring me. And that's really how I built my practice up to this day.
Yeah. And to this day and onward. Because like you said, you never stop. It's constant and never ending improvement. Tony Robbins speaks about that. He calls it kanai. And it really is the case. So I think that, a lot of times people would say, hey, of those lessons you learned, how would you do things differently? Well, you probably would say, well, if I had known about the $5,000 side, work and gotten turned down, maybe I would have done things differently that way. But then maybe you would have been stuck in corporate America. So I guess what I would say is, have you gone through some lessons that you've persevered through? And how would you take a different path to even get to the level of success you experience now even faster?
Yes. Okay. So yes, those lessons really that I learned from my experience was not to get discouraged, not to feel like, okay, you were denied, whether it's an opportunity or money or a bonus or whatever it is. Don't get discouraged by a single occurrence. Take that and build yourself and use that as your strength, because before you hit rock bottom, you really don't know what the sweet taste of success is. You have to fall in order to rise. So people that just have it handed to them or on a silver platter, it's a different sense of appreciation, and it's a different sense of, work ethic. So the lessons that I really learned are, don't treat that failure as if I'm worthless and I have nothing to offer, because had I not, hit rock bottom, had I not essentially given a 2-week notice with no safety net, okay, and no idea of where my next, check was going to come from and can I pay my rent, then I really would have never, been motivated to start my own practice or see if I could really make it out here with only a year under my belt.
Yeah, huge. So, I've heard it said that, failure is an event, not a person, so like you're not a failure. I'm not a failure. When the negative things happen, it's just an event, and you either win or and most people say lose. No, you win or you learn. And those are some great lessons that you've put into place in your practice over the years. If you were talking to a young you or another up and coming law school graduate, what are some of the key attributes in addition to what you've mentioned already, perseverance and overcoming failure and stick with it? What are some of those attributes that someone new coming into the field wanting to get into entrepreneurialism would you say that people need to keep in mind, both personally as well as professionally?
Sure. I would say constantly keep up on market conditions. The more the better you are, and the more that you can offer. So, research, tapping into as many resources as you can, attending events and seminars, learning from others. To be honest, I pretty much learned the ropes by watching the partners at my firm. I saw what they did and I copied what they did. Yeah. I didn't reinvent the wheel. I just, took the wheel and took it for a ride. So I think it really comes down to, knowledge is power, not to sound cliche, but, the more that you can educate yourself, the better. And also try and learn the ropes first by working for somebody else or somebody, that is doing what you want to do. And then take that experience and recreate it for yourself. Of course, I had to learn along the way. I didn't know everything. There was a lot of things that I had to look up or ask other people. And it's like, don't be afraid to, ask other people for their advice or, watch and learn, so to speak. So I think that for one, definitely is, something kind of like my foundation to allow me to grow. And then because you're constantly growing every day. And then personally, you really have to be dedicated. So it's something that I used to, wake up in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep because my mind was just constantly running. The wheels were constantly turning, and I would make notes for myself. I would keep a little journal by my bed. And every time I came up with ideas or how am I going to grow? How am I going to succeed? What else can I do to gain more clientele? I would write down these notes, and I would say, follow that script and go with it. So I think between those two, professionally and personally, that's really what I would advise a younger me.
That is so huge. And a couple of things that you mentioned there made me think of some little cliche phrases that I've heard over the years. Maybe you have as well, but success leaves clues. So if you want to be successful, people that have gone before you, they've done it and learned, and they leave some clues. So follow their lead and swipe and adapt. And it's not stealing, but it's like, I see that they did it this way. And, I'm going to just make it my own and do it this way a little bit, but I'm going to follow their lead. And that's really the true definition of innovation. Everybody can't just be, these robotic cookie cutter template of doing things the same way over and over, but being able to realize that you never arrive. You need to watch for mentors, watch for people people that have done it before you. And, probably at this point in your career, you've come through, learned lessons, you're polishing, you're never, resolved to the fact that I've attained. So when you think about now 15 plus years in the industry of running your own law firm, what is your purpose? What is your why? It's more than just a transaction. It's more than just a case and a deal. Talk a little bit about from the 30,000 foot view, what drives you and makes you want to serve your clients and community?
Yes, great question. So for me, it's all about creating new homeowners that didn't think they had a chance to own a home. So I get great pleasure from helping, young buyers, young investors, people who maybe don't, make more than 80,000 a year, and helping, make their dreams come true. I have so many buyers, young professionals or young single women or men that are really like, I want to buy, but I don't know where to begin. And I don't know if I have enough money or, if I'm even qualified. So I give a lot of first-time home buyer seminars, and it really, excites me to help these young buyers become homeowners and build their assets and build their wealth for the future, and not throw money away on rent, and really facilitate and help them buy their first property. And I do a lot of hand holding along the way, and a lot of them are nervous and scared and are kind of unaware of different pitfalls and things that could happen with the home buying process. And I pretty much want to be their shield. So, and support system. So that's really that's my overall why. And, sure, I can assist investors in acquiring wealth and building their portfolio. I can do that every day. But what really gives me the biggest reward is seeing how happy, my 28-year-old client is sitting at the closing table signing her loan docs. Yep. And just flabbergasted that she's actually, her name is on the deed to the property. So that's what I really love about what I do.
Well, I think that it's just been such a neat conversation to hear about your journey, jumping in or being thrust in, with that very beginning before you even knew that you wanted to start your own firm. So you took that chance, all the lessons learned. So I think that is just spectacular. So if anyone is listening to this, wanting to learn more about what you do in the Tab Law Firm, what's the best way they can reach out and connect with you, Taliya?
Sure. So the best way to connect with me is through my personal website, Tali360.com. And there you can check out my website, my events, my books, and you can connect with me all in one place via email, text, or phone call. Again, that's Tali360.com. And thank you so much, Mike.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, Tali.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.